They met by coincidence, or at least that's what they told themselves at first. A late bar, low lights, music that vibrated more than it played. She had come out with friends but drifted away from the group without realizing it, pulled toward the quieter edge of the room where the city lights pressed against the windows. He stood there already, drink untouched, watching the reflection of the street below like he was waiting for something to happen. When their eyes met, there was no shock, no dramatic spark, just recognition. The kind that feels physical, like warmth spreading slowly instead of exploding. They talked close enough to hear each other without raising their voices. About nothing important at first. About how the city felt different at night, about how certain places made honesty easier. His voice was calm, confident without trying. Hers carried curiosity, a playful edge that came out more with every minute. The space between them shrank naturally, not because either leaned in, but because either stepped back. Touch happened accidentally at first, fingers brushing when passing a glass, his hand at her lower back as people squeezed past. Each time, either apologized. When they left the bar, the air outside felt cool against heated skin. The city buzzed around them, alive and indifferent. They walked without direction, conversation fading into glances and half-smiles. Desire wasn't rushed. It built slowly, deliberately, fueled by restraint more than action. By the time they reached his apartment, the tension felt almost heavy, like something tangible they both carried up the stairs. Inside, lights stayed low. Jackets were dropped somewhere near the door and forgotten. They stood close, still talking, still delaying the inevitable because anticipation felt just as good. When he finally touched her properly, it wasn't aggressive or hurried. It was confident, exploratory, as if he was asking permission without words. She answered by stepping closer, by letting her hands rest on his chest, by breathing differently. Kissing came later than expected, slow and intentional, charged more by what hadn't happened yet than what had. The night unfolded without urgency. They moved between conversation and silence, between closeness and space, learning each other through reactions rather than explanations. Desire wasn't loud. It was deep, controlled, intimate in a way that didn't need to be described to be understood. Time lost meaning. The city outside kept moving, but inside, everything narrowed to sensation, presence, and choice. By morning, light crept in softly, revealing the reality of what they'd shared. No awkwardness. No regret. Just a quiet understanding that this was exactly what it was meant to be, intense, honest, and unpromised. They lay there for a while, not touching, not talking, simply aware of each other's presence. When she finally left, the goodbye was unremarkable in the best way. No promises, no drama. Just a look that said, "We'll remember this." And they did. Not as a mistake or a fantasy, but as a reminder. That sometimes desire doesn't need a future to be real. Sometimes it exists to wake you up, to remind you of your body, your confidence, your ability to choose connection without explanation. The city didn't sleep that night. And neither, in a way, did they. The day after felt slower, like the city was catching its breath. She moved through her morning routine with an unusual awareness of her body, of the way her skin remembered touch even without it happening again. Nothing dramatic had changed, yet everything felt slightly sharper. Coffee tasted stronger. Music felt closer. She didn't check her phone immediately, not because she was waiting for a message, but because she didn't need one to validate what had happened. That night stood on its own, complete without explanation. He felt it too, though he wouldn't have described it the same way. For him, it was the calm that stayed. The absence of regret, of confusion, of the usual questioning that followed intense moments. He went about his day grounded, focused, carrying the quiet satisfaction of having been fully present with someone without pretending it had to mean more than it did. Desire hadn't left him restless, it had settled him. That surprised him. They didn't rush to reconnect. Days passed. Then a short message appeared, simple and unforced, referencing something small they had laughed about that night. The reply came easily. No pressure. No expectations layered between the words. When they met again, it wasn't at night, and it wasn't in secrecy. A casual afternoon drink, sunlight instead of shadows. Seeing each other in that clarity felt different, but not disappointing. The tension was still there, just quieter, woven into glances instead of touch. They talked more this time. About boundaries. About what they wanted and what they didn't. About how rare it was to share something intense without turning it into ownership or obligation. There was respect in that conversation, and maturity. Attraction didn't disappear when named honestly, it deepened. They understood that what connected them wasn't just physical pull, but the way they had chosen presence over performance. Their story didn't turn into a dramatic romance or fade into nothing. It became something in between, intentional, flexible, real. Some nights they met again, letting desire speak when words weren't needed. Other times they simply talked, laughed, shared space. Neither tried to control where it was going. That was the point. In a city that never stopped demanding clarity, labels, direction, they allowed themselves something rare, connection without pressure. And long after that first night blended into memory, both of them knew it had left a mark. Not because it promised a future, but because it reminded them of who they were when they chose honesty, confidence, and desire on their own terms. The city kept moving. Nights kept coming. But they carried that moment with them, proof that intimacy doesn't need to be loud or permanent to be real.